I'm Eric,
And I'm Michael.
and this is
Whitetail Bums.
Welcome back to Whitetail Bums, everyone. I'm Eric.
And I'm Michael Stoll. I can't believe we're actually doing a second one of these.
I know, I can't believe they let us.
I know.
But you're also David, Jamichael,
Camera.
Camera.
Camera, some might tell me.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You just got back from South Dakota, right?
Yep, South Dakota.
And
The land of the cold. Let me tell you, everybody. I'm from Ohio, so I'm pretty used to the cold. But Casey Smith, the Texan himself. I mean, I'm not sure if there is a more Texan human being than Casey. He does not like the cold quite as much, I learned.
How did you like it?
I mean, listen, it was pretty cold. It's not like Ohio. Like, we're a lot more north there, and the wind is horrible.
Yeah, I bet. What'd you wear? Did you bring
So,
solitudes or?
Pretty much, I wore, for my pants, literally Corrugate Foundry and then Solitude bibs.
Was it enough?
It was enough for sure. I feel like I run a little, like, I'm fine with the cold.
Yeah.
I'm fine being a little cold. I'd rather be cold than hot. Let's just say it like that. Mm-hmm. But for the top, I went Kiln, Furnace Hoodie, Solitude, and it seemed to be
The right move.
just enough.
Now,
I mean,
it snowed while you guys were up there, right?
it did. It was kind of flurries, but there was one or two times it started coming down. And when you want to talk about easy to film in, I mean, everything just looks majestic in the snow.
I love filming in the snow. It's cool.
We don't get the opportunity to do it much, but every time I do it, I have more fun than the last.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, Greg's not here. He is hunting down at his property.
Yeah.
And he had
seeing monsters.
Yeah, he had a pretty good encounter. It was
that deer's base, like his bases come up like a good 4 inches until the main beam starts. It's impressive.
Tyler said the good word. He said that deer looks hideous. And that
hideous.
Is pretty much what that is. Which, speaking of hideous-looking deer, I last week was filming Hunter Dickens on a rifle hunt. And you guys will, I'm sure this will come out tomorrow. And maybe the post will come out tomorrow.
Oh, the Hunter Dickens post. HTH.
You guys can see some hideous-looking stuff coming this week.
If people liked the HTH hat, just wait until they see the second version. It is ridiculous looking.
I tried, it reminds me of something, but I can't think.
It reminds me of like a witch.
Yeah, that's what I think too, but...
And it's fitting because last week was Halloween, so...
Yeah, I think there's a character on A Night Before Christmas or something like that. That old Halloween movie.
Dude, I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's an old Halloween movie. I think there's a character on there that it reminds me of. But let's see. You hunted up there in South Dakota with Casey, right?
I did.
Yeah.
We So Casey, back in October, early October, he had found a spot, which I'm not going to go too deep into his stuff. I'm not going to go too deep in because I'm sure they'll talk about it on the Element podcast. So I'll just preface this with this. It was found in early October, and apparently with the cold front coming in, KC was like, I just can't let this tag get away from me. I can't eat this tag, knowing what he found out. So last week we took a real short trip up to South Dakota, which... If anybody knows where in the country we are right now, we're in Texas. Mm-hmm. South Dakota is one state away from Canada. So it's like a 17-hour drive up there. But we took advantage of the cold front, and there was one property Casey really had his eyes on. And other than that, there was a buck that you guys saw in the headlights. I think you were with him. Yeah. You saw in the headlights that he was like, pretty much, if any buck other than that buck comes in, you can shoot him, Michael. And I was like, okay, except for on one property, which is the one he wanted to have success on.
If you want to see that buck, it is at the end of there's a video we just released last week or 2 weeks ago where it has Chris Webb shooting a public land buck in. I think the title is Time is Ticking.
Time is.
So, I think
that's the
it.
thumb. It's.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I thought I had more time or something like that.
It. I thought I had more time. Go and watch that if you want to see this buck.
But anyway, on that specific property, he was like, any other deer, you can shoot. So the first morning, we, if you can believe it, are running behind. Like we're running behind. What do you want to say?
Sun up.
Listen, it was cloudy. Okay, so we can discuss whether it was up or not. It doesn't matter. The first morning we're real disorganized, so we have to like kind of ditch our first plan, which is to go way back into the place Casey wants to hunt, and instead we go to a property relatively close to where we were staying, and just kind of hang in a spot that Tyler had success. You've hunted at it in early October, and we kind of, changed our plan a little bit in there just based on the wind and set up, and immediately, like, the sun's up, okay? I'm going to spoil it. The sun's up. It's like legal shooting, and I'm like my bag is coming up the tree, and I like hear footsteps. So I look up, and there's just a spike looking at me at like 20 yards. So I'm like, oh, that is not good. We are not even close to set up. I have my GoPro in my bino harness, so I like pull it out, and I give it to Casey, like, film this. Like, so we have something.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing when you're the camera guy is like not being set up and a deer comes in.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of like, this deer's at 20 yards. So I'm trying to like slowly get my camera arm out and slowly ratchet it on. And stuff's falling, and it's like, oh my goodness, what's going on?
Me and Casey did that last year in Colorado. We were setting up, and there's I think it was a spike, like chasing a doe around as we were setting up.
Yeah. So as this is all going on, I'm like, I keep my eyes up to where we think the deer are like coming from, and I see like 4 or 5 deer out there. Never can put binos on them because I'm trying to get set up and do everything like that. So this deer like runs away, and I hear stuff cracking coming through the willows, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And nope, just another little forky comes right by. So we're kind of, they eventually work downwind, smell us a little bit, kind of just bound off. They were dumb. They were dumb deer for whatever reason.
Those are the ones I like shooting.
Yeah, seriously. If they were a little bigger, I would have thought about it. So we finally get situated, and we both have bows in the tree at this point because, something spooky could pop out. It's like October 29th at this point. They're starting to do the thing. And we finally get, like, set up, and I put binos up on the deer, just see a couple does, and then Casey goes, buck. And I'm like, oh, Cephas. Because the way he said it, it's like, oh, this is going to be a shooter for him, which there's 2 different standards. But he said, nice buck, you're going to shoot this deer. Because it was following the same exact path that the deer that just came by followed. And so we're sitting there, and I'm like, I'm clipped on. Casey's behind the camera at this point. We did a bunch of gymnastics to get there. And this deer, like, we think is coming down the trail. And we hear twigs cracking, and it's like, oh, it's about to happen. Like, this is first sit. We're late to the tree. I'm like, I'm about to get some of this KC Providence right now. And out pops a doe. And it's like, what? Where did this even come from? So then she just kind of feeds out, looks up at us, and she's at like 7 yards when she looks up, and I'm like, okay, well, if a buck does that, I'm ripping him. So she eventually feeds off, and like we're sitting there for the next hour just like ready for it to happen. Never happens. Nothing. He just evaded us somehow.
That buck footage you showed me where there was like multiple bucks, was that hunt or a different hunt?
So then the next day we go into KC's spot, see a couple deer I want to vomit just thinking about. And next morning we're like, okay, it's hard to get back there. It's like 10 degrees with the wind chill. And we're like, okay, so we're going to give ourselves a break. And then, because we knew we had at least 2 more days. So it's like, we'll go back in after we get rested up. And so we go back to the same property. We just had that encounter with the buck in the morning before we went back. And I thought we were going to kill. We had just like watched a buck do a thing. And this morning we were going in to kill. And sure enough, we get set up late again. We kind of bust a couple does getting in there, and they see us, but we get set up. Spike works through at like 3 yards. We're like, okay. Then the does come through at like probably 50, and it's like, well, I don't really want to shoot 50, so hopefully he doesn't do that. And sure enough, here come the bucks at right as the sun is coming over the hills, like probably 20 minutes after sunset, sunrise, just because the hills are up there. But just peeking over, and KC sees bucks coming down the lane, and they eventually just work at 90 yards right down the grass
Crazy
of the
how
marsh.
Smart they are.
Yeah, and just J hook right into a bedding area, and it's like.
Did you at least see where they bedded?
We didn't see where they bedded, but where they went in, it's like they're gonna bed in a I don't know, 20-acre place.
I was looking at that spot in early October and noticed a lot of trails going through that cattail stuff that I'm assuming they went into.
Yeah, they just hooked right into. I mean, it's plain as day when you walk down there. You can see the lane that they went into. But anyway, we feel real good because we know where they're going to bed. We got a wind switch midday, so we think we can move in on the line that they're going to take to go back up onto the cornfield that they were coming from that morning. Mm-hmm. So we get set up. Dude, I have never been more cold in my life in this tree. It was like 35. That day it actually got up to like 45. So I was like,
that the day it was windy?
Yeah. I was like, it got up to 45. I was like, oh, this is nothing. We'll just go kiln, furnace, source.
Ooh. Wasn't enough. You didn't have any wind blocking.
No, I didn't even think about it. And so by the time sunset, I was like cold. Like, oh my goodness, I can't think of anything else other than the cold. And the deer weren't moving. We literally just were in the middle of a blackbird swarm. So it's just like birds tweeting all around you, wind hitting you, and it's just like, what is happening? Just overstimulation station. And eventually, it's like 10 minutes to the end of shooting light. And I just see a black blob go across the field. And I'm like, I turn to KC and I'm like, I saw a deer. And KC, if KC doesn't see a deer,
he doesn't believe you.
He doesn't believe you. Like, I kind of learned that. He's like, really? Like, are you sure it was a deer? And I was like, yeah, dude, it was running. And like, this isn't a bush. This thing was running. So I'm like, I'm going to grab my bow. Like, at this point, I'm not getting surprised. The tree line we're sitting on is the one the trail they came by was 5 yards underneath the tree.
Spooky.
So it's like, I'm not going to get surprised this late. And sure enough, here he comes, runs up the hill, just gets to 50 and like kind of stops like halfway up the hill to look around. I get the grunt call out, grunt at him. And dude, this thing turns and just like postures. And it's like, KC even says, you can hear it in the video. He's like, he's coming. Like, we thought he was about to come to the base of the tree.
I bet you're freaking out.
Dude, just wait. So he turns and runs over the hill, and I'm telling you, like I start convulsing. Like, I'm shaking because of a mixture of the cold and just straight adrenaline. And I was freaking out, dude. But he never wanted to play the game.
Man. Last light, too.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, 50, like, I don't want to shoot 50 at all. And especially on a frontal.
And it's windy.
And last light, and it's super windy. It's like, I'm not going to take that shot.
But you did get a shot.
I did get a shot.
A few days later, or what?
Yeah, so KC killed on October 31st, or he shot on October 31st.
Ooh, cat's out of the bag on that.
He
But if you've seen the Instagram post,
then people know.
This is the buck he's talking about.
Killed the following day, which you're going to have to go to the actual Element podcast to listen to that story. And so the following morning, we go back in the same spot. And that night, we had pictures of, like, mondos coming in. Like, deer with drop tines, like, all this stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm about to kill a monster. And it's like, okay. So we finally, like, we get out there. We're getting out early this time. And there's a guy in the parking lot. So it's like, well, I can go up to this guy, ask him where he's going to hunt, and try to hunt around him, but it's probably going to take up some time, and he could just be going to the same spot. So instead of doing that, we quickly bounce out, go around to a different place, and like just try to get into a bedding area. Like that's all we try to do because we know it's November 2nd at this time. Like we know they're starting to do the thing. So we get set up in the bedding area, and like right off the bat, a doe comes running by, and it's like, okay, this is gonna be a good morning. But we don't really see much until probably about 10 o'clock. A doe comes and like beds down.
So it wasn't a good morning until later.
Yeah, but we thought right off the bat. It was going to be real good.
Was it windy this day?
Huh. It was a lot more calm. It was probably like 10-mile-an-hour winds at the end of our sit. But we have a deer come by at like 10, and she's working the trail. I mean, I got a trail where she's going to pop out at like 30, and she's going to have no idea we're in the world. And she beds down at like 45 through a bunch of brush. So it's like, and we have to be out of the hotel at 11.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's a leaving day.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and it's like, I don't know what to do. And we get to the point where it's like, okay, at 11, we're going to grunt at her. And whatever her reaction is, we're going to live with.
Yeah.
And it gets to about 10:45, and some hen pheasants come out of the willows and just freak out.
Just start barking.
They see us, and they fly out. Like they bust out, go right over her head, and she like stands up. And it's like, okay, well, she's going to come right down the lane. She's facing that way. It's like she's going to walk into the lane, and she doesn't. She turns, walks away. I go full draw, and like she stops. She's probably at like 45 at this point, and like I can't find a shot. And it's like, oh. It's like I'm going to be sick because I really don't want to eat this tag.
Yeah.
Like it's an expensive tag, and it would hurt to eat. So we sit there, and it's like, okay, well, we were going to rattle before she came in, so I'm going to rattle now. And sure enough, she comes right back in on a line.
Dang.
And Casey's like, there's a doe, like right behind you, 20 yards. And I'm like, okay, well, here we go. So she's working in, and like we're in thick willows. Like your holes are tiny holes. And so I go and I draw on the get out of here. She's like working into a hole perfectly. I draw, and she stops. So I seriously hold my draw for as long as I possibly can, and she finally like looks away, and I let down.
Oh.
So at this point, I'm already like I'm pretty gassed after that.
Yeah. I
And
didn't
then
know about that.
yeah. So she like goes and starts working back where she came from. So she's about to go into another gap. I go to pull my bow back. Arm hits a limb.
She sees it.
She didn't see it.
She heard it.
She didn't hear it. My arm hits the limb, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not going to sit here and try to fight it. I just let right back down. All the while, dude, you can see the bruise. I have rattling antlers between my legs. I had nowhere quick to put them, and she completely surprised us. So she is working more and more left. I go to draw again. Same thing, except it like hangs on just the nuck of it. So I wait a couple more steps, and she finally like gets to where I can just like at that point I like pointed it out and like just ripped it back.
Yeah.
Because I was like, she's in a big hole, and I'm gonna shoot her. So she's at probably 18 at this point. So she's close, and she like is taking a couple steps, and like I said, it's a calm morning. So I really like I didn't want to grunt stop her because that's how calm of a morning it was. Now looking back, I probably would have taken a different approach, but nevertheless, so she steps into the hole, and her leg is back.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as she goes like that and starts to step forward, I like, for some reason, just let it rip. And it was the wrong decision because her momentum of her stepping forward just moved it to where the arrow hit. Now, it hit lower than I wanted it to hit, but it hit back because I shot her on the walk. If I would have just stopped her, it would have been fine.
And so you guys got down, trailed her, and
We trailed her for a long ways, and she eventually went down into a creek bed that is like it's kind of splotchy with water.
mm-hmm.
And we tracked blood as much as we could, checked every creek crossing, and couldn't find anything leading up the hill. And so we pretty much just at that point got down, or just grid searched everything.
Yeah.
Like just grid searched as much as we could, and couldn't find a thing, and eventually just had to throw the towel in.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's real unfortunate. But you can always learn from stuff like that.
Yeah, you shoot 4,000 arrows a day, right?
Dude, I've been...
That's what you said you're going to do yesterday.
The thing is, I'm shooting just fine back here.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is I think I'm going too quickly in the tree. Like, my brain is moving too quickly.
Yeah, it's easy to do that.
Like Casey said right after I shot, it was like, well, you could have just let her take 3 more steps and she's in the absolute wide open. But I'm trying to, like, find the smallest hole because we're in this willow thicket. And it's like if you just take a step back out of the situation and assess it better.
We're always thinking
better.
they're just going to, like, get up and run away.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I got to shoot them now.
Yeah, when in reality it's like you just got to shoot them when they're in the best place.
I was having similar thoughts last week so if you're a hunter, you probably already know that a major cold front went across the whole country. So we were pretty much all hunting except Tyler. He was editing and
Just being a trooper.
he had bad FOMO, which
Dude,
I don't blame him.
he kept texting us every morning like, I'm thinking about you all. I wish I was out there with you guys.
Which really, so I went hunting one evening during the cold front and had a smaller buck come through, and he was not legal. He was smaller than my buck last year, so I was like, nope, not even gonna try it.
You mean not 13 inches wide?
Yeah.
That is what you mean by illegal?
Yes.
So in East Texas, if you don't know, you have to shoot a deer that has 13-inch inside spread, or else it is an illegal deer.
So last year mine was right at 13, so I mean basically
right on the money.
I basically base all my deer off of that. So
yeah, it's a good landmark for sure. You can just be like, as long as he's bigger than that deer, you're good.
But I was supposed to film Tyler at his house the next morning, but I think he had a lot going on. He was editing. So that evening when I was in the tree, I texted him. I said, are we for sure hunting in the morning? Because if we don't, I'm coming back out here and leaving my sticks and platform. And he was very gracious enough he's like, if you want to hunt, go for it. I can do some editing. And so he was a trooper for that. I think it gave him FOMO because the next morning I got set up and it felt like the morning I killed my first buck.
That's spooky.
Things were just happening all around me in every direction. It was weird. But
so was it like chasing happening, or was
chasing.
it like were you hearing grunts and stuff?
Well, I'll get to that later. I didn't hear any grunts, but early in the morning, I'm set up. Pretty much the same setup as I shot my first buck last year.
Same tree?
No, I was 10 yards closer to where the trail camera is.
Gotcha.
But it's probably 8:30. We've had a lot of rain here in East Texas, so things are flooded right now. And there's a little washout. So I'm in a saddle facing the washout. I'm a lefty, so...
just think of everything you guys probably know and just do it backwards.
Yeah. I'm sitting there and I hear something walking through the water and and it's to my left, my 10 o'clock pretty much. And I knew it was a deer right away because just by the sound of it walking through water. And I turned and looked, and I told Tyler this yesterday. I don't know if it's because for so long I only saw does and spike or forks. But when you see a mature buck, it's that's a different animal.
Oh, yeah.
They walk different. They carry themselves different.
That's what I notice out in open country is Like, you can tell a difference
Yeah, it's
with your
weird.
naked eye.
And so, like, I see this buck just coming up. He's probably within 30 yards walking my way. And I don't even have to, like, think if he's 13 inches. I'm like, oh, crap, this
That's
is a
good.
shooter.
That's
and
a
he's
good
walking
feeling.
right at me. And he's going to come into the lane I'm set up for. So I get my GoPro on, and I get the main camera all situated. And then about that time, I think I got my hand on my bow, and about that time he's within 10 yards, so I can't move much more.
Golly, dude.
And he gets to, I mean, not even 5 yards, I bet, and just stops. And I'm assuming I was skylined from his point of view because he just saw a blob and looked up.
It is
But you
definitely
think
tough not to be.
When he's that close, and I was probably 10 or 11 feet off the ground. And I remember the evening before I wanted to be higher, but the trail I was shooting to, I wouldn't have had shots if I was higher.
It's very tough in East Texas
Yeah.
to have shots high in a tree.
Yeah, it is just thick brush everywhere.
It's just a tangly mess.
But this buck looks up at me, and he sees me, and he's like, knows it's not natural, but then he kind of like looks around, looks back up at me, and never gets real freaked out, but he still does that like half turn.
He knows something's up.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not doing this. Did a half turn and starts walking away, and I get the camera on him, and I was going to shoot him if he gave me a shot, but it was so thick there was just no shot. And he crosses the washout and then heads to my right. He's now at like 12 o'clock, heading right at like 50, 60 yards, and there's still no shot. But
Just let it eat.
if there was any kind of opening, I may have thought about it.
Golly.
But I grunted at him, and that ticked him off because he stopped and like thrashed on a bush for a few minutes.
Really?
Thrashed on a bush, just looked around, and then slowly just walked out of my life. And I was like,
Golly.
I hate
So
this.
do you think they're doing the thing, or are they still
Well, they
getting there?
were right now. I don't know, but during this cold front, they definitely were. I mean,
Interesting.
the Moultrie cell cams were just lighting up.
Yeah, it was weird because mornings it seemed to be really good, and then evenings seemed
Yeah.
kind of dull.
That's kind of
Like me and KC would sit there in the room and be like, there hasn't been a picture in 45 minutes, and there's a bunch of cameras out. I mean, we're running a fleet,
I thought the same thing. That mornings was where it was at.
which is weird.
But then I had like a few does walk like I said, I had deer come from every direction around me. I had a few does, and then I had a fork come through, and it gave me a great shot, but obviously it was a fork, so it's not legal. And then a doe kind of like came in quick after it and was not really trotting, but walking quickly the same trail this fork did. And so immediately I thought, I was like, there's a buck pushing these deer. And so I look back, and about that time I see a pretty big deer. I don't know what it is. I just know it was bigger than that doe and fork I just saw.
Golly.
And so I just start grabbing. And this deer is probably at my, if you're looking at the tree I'm tethered into, and I'm a lefty, it was at my 4 o'clock.
So there.
And
Like right
so-
where you're trying to shoot. pretty
A
much.
little behind though.
Okay.
And so I start getting the camera ready, and I grab my bow. And as I'm doing this, like, he's pushing that doe, and I start getting everything ready, and he starts trotting, trying to catch back up with that doe.
Yep.
And so now he's like starting to come towards my 6 o'clock. And I quickly get the camera over there, and about the time he's at my 6 o'clock, he's at like 10 yards.
Golly.
And I came in quick.
Getting on you quick.
Yeah. And I'm self-filming, so it's not the easiest, but I stop him there, and then I just get ready to try to draw. And he obviously sees my bow moving around and, like, spooked out. And he may have caught some of my wind, too, because it was blowing down that way. And he spooked out. And I think he was bigger than the first buck. Like,
He's a big deer.
he was wider, and I'm like, when I saw this buck first, I thought one side was a spike, and it was like tall as Greg's deer last year.
Dang.
The buck he shot on the same day I shot my first one.
It's weird.
It was tall and wide, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Dude, I don't know. That first deer is a large
I know,
animal.
but this, I'm telling you, this one was bigger. And so that happens, and I'm just like, man,
I'm sure you were so happy right
I don't
there.
think I'm going to get another opportunity to do this. But yesterday morning, yesterday morning? No. When did you get back?
Yesterday. No. 2 days ago.
Okay, so it was 2 mornings ago. Me and Tyler went back out there, and I filmed Tyler, and he rattled in a pretty decent buck, but it was just barely not legal. It was like 12
Dude,
and a half.
it's one of those deers you like look at it and you're trying so hard to just make those antlers go past the tips of the ears.
But I mean, this spot was on fire during that cold front.
Yep.
But man, self-filming is tough, and that's kind of what this episode is about. I know we told you all about what we've been doing, but this podcast is about self-filming and some tips on self-filming if you're out there trying to film your own hunts.
Yeah, I don't know how many people actually do self-film, but I bet there's a bunch of dudes that would like to.
Yeah.
Not even if you're trying to you might not even be trying to make a YouTube channel or video, but
people film just to do it and have the video. So
yeah, dude.
If you're notice that there's a lot going on when you're self-filming and then a buck runs in, and it's like, how do you manage it all? And what I learned this past week is just like what you were just saying with your doe, is to just take a step back and slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Because that first buck, I didn't have to try to grab my bow and try to shoot him right there at 5 yards. I should have got everything ready. And I don't know if he saw me move or not, but I should have got everything ready and just be as still as I could be and let him walk through, and then grab my bow. And then I can get the just camera as it needs to be. And then I would have had a shot. But like I said, I don't know if he saw me move or not. And then in South Dakota this past year, just a month ago, that was in that I thought I had more time video.
Based on the title. Or the title based on
that. I was so worried about trying to get the camera perfect and zooming in. I literally thought I had more time because the doe went to feed there, and I thought the buck was going to do the same thing. But man, just get the camera on him, and in that situation, I should have just got the camera on him, pulled back, and ripped. Because he was at 18, and
I mean,
you can post edit. You can
exactly with our type, the cameras that we have, especially. But honestly, at this point, any camera, aside from a iPhone, you can't really zoom too much on an iPhone.
Yeah.
But in post,
you can
not even post. You can crop in a video on any modern camera, pretty much. And I think I got in trouble with this last year at the same property that you've been having all these encounters on, where I'm trying to get the perfect angle I'm the camera guy. When in reality, it's well, you can kind of do that in post. You can crop and frame them upright all in post. You just need to get the shot on film.
And having 2 angles definitely helps.
Oh my goodness.
GoPros are very handy just for a second
especially
angle.
In the hecticness of a big buck coming in. You're jerking that camera around, you're freaking out, you're trying to get it on the deer, and then all of a sudden you if you only have one angle there, it's just going to be jumbling people's heads, and it's that's not very
and
good
with
to watch.
the GoPro, people can see why the camera's just fumbling around and shaky. They're oh, you're trying
they
to
can
get
also
it
kind of get a sense of it's coming, it's happening right now.
And if you're someone out there who has a GoPro, the white batteries are what you need, because they do well in the cold and they last. I mean, you can turn that on. We've done some podcasts with them. Let's just say that just ran them and they lasted for over an hour.
Yeah, I definitely gained an appreciation for those white batteries in the cold.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever had it happen, but I had cold battery mode.
Oh, in South Dakota?
In South Dakota. It literally, the screen wouldn't pop up or anything, but the red dot was beeping, or it was flashing. So I was is this recording or what? And I actually turn it on, and it just says cold battery mode enabled. Happens when battery is below 0 degrees. It's what?
You gotta love it. That's why you keep a bunch of extras in your pocket, being just...
No, but what I was going to say is, dude, I would charge at midday when we went far back, and other than that, it was good. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it was getting to like 40%, but it was not dying.
Yeah. They're pretty dang handy.
It's awesome.
But there's something else I was going to say about the self-filming, but
I think something that can help a self-filmer is dialing your setup.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
You're trying to manage a bunch of gear.
Yep.
A bunch of gear. So the more efficient each movement can be in your setup or in like your packing, your organization of your pack, it's like each one of those is going to save you a whole bunch of headaches, one, and two, a whole bunch of time when you're getting in the tree when, you know, you're exhausted, you got to drive to get to your property and all that kind of stuff. So if you dial your setup, and I mean, that just goes for hunting too, but if you dial your setup, it is going to make your life so much easier.
I pretty much have, when I'm self-filming, I pretty much have like the same setup always. And it's, if like where you place your camera arm, I always place it low.
Yeah,
that way you can maneuver it below your tethered and everything, and it's out of the way. Always have the bow easy place to grab, and then my backpack's usually like on the other side of the where the camera arm is, or I try to find trees where there's multiple like trunks. And that way like I can put my backpack on another tree that's close by.
Yeah, it's definitely tough in certain places to do that. So
East Texas
in particular, but the bag on the other side of the tree is for sure the move.
But again, just taking your time when you're self-filming and just taking a step back, like watch it unfold, and like just don't freak out pretty much. And like they're not gonna just run out of nowhere unless you're moving around and stuff. So just being still, patient, and letting everything unfold.
Something that I'd never have really done, but I'm thinking about a lot more now after this South Dakota fiasco, you could call it. Tyler's talked about it a lot, but it's like visualizing what's going to happen. Yeah. Visualize every outcome. And then, so when the outcome happens, you're not caught off guard.
Which I do. I'm sure you do too, but for people may not do this out there is, like when you're picking a tree, like visualize like how it's gonna go down.
Yep, but it doesn't even stop there.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the tree, I mean, let's be honest here. There are some boring times sitting up in the tree. So you need something to take your mind off it instead of going on Twitter, or, you know, going on Instagram and seeing who killed a giant buck. Oh, sorry. On X.
Well, on X.
But man, I lost my train of thought. But instead of doing that, instead of getting on social media, just like think about, hey, I have a shot here, but if he comes in fast, I might just want to get the camera over to here and be ready for this shot instead. And I think that would help a ton.
Well, there's a lot of big bucks hitting the ground across the country. I mean, like I forget what Tyler said. So Hunter called him after he shot his giant buck. And Tyler on the phone was like, the first thing he said was like, there is a lot of bucks hitting the ground. Yeah. Because he had FOMO bad, like we said earlier. So there's a lot hitting the ground out there. And if you're looking to self-film, you know, take the tips we gave you today and go shoot a big one.
Seriously, dude.
You guys can go check out some of our recent videos. We're pumping out a lot of videos right now. We're editing a bunch, so we got a lot of stuff coming out.
I mean, Tyler just put out like 4 videos in the past 2 weeks, dude.
He's edited like 6 videos.
He's been getting after it.
Yep. So we are about to head to Kansas and then possibly Oklahoma right after.
The land of the giants.
I'm excited. Hopefully we get a kill early, and then I can make my biscuits and gravy again.
Dang, dude. Get everybody sick.
Nope.
Just getting absolutely everybody sick.
Listen, only Casey... And you were already sick, so I don't care what you say.
I don't know. I feel like I was over it by then.
No. So only KC got sick. Tyler said he loved it. Greg said he loved it. He didn't get sick.
Hey, they taste good, but usually that kind of stuff you kind of got to look out for.
I don't know. I think it was all right. But be sure to listen to the Element podcast this week with Tyler and KC as well. And we'll catch you guys next time on a third episode of Whitetail Bones.
See y'all.